Chapter 292 to 295. The whole body of the attacker was wrapped in mud, and the more he struggled to break free the tighter the grip of the mud became, so much so that all his movements were restricted. Not to mention printing hand seals, even finger movements were not possible. But even with the movements of the other party restricted, Sandaime did not dare to be careless. He understood very well that if the attacker is indeed Uchiha Shursui, then he won't be vulnerable with such a simple technique. After all, Uchiha Shursui has Menjikyu Sharingan, and Menjikyu Sharingan allows the user to use Susanoo. And Uchiha Shursui's Menjikyu Sharingan allows him to use Koto Ematsukami, so Sandaime was especially careful of the attacker's genjutsu. As Sandaime walked closer to the attacker turned his head and stared at Sandaime with a gloomy expression. Hiruzen's eyes flickered, and he muttered to himself, he intends to use genjutsu. There are many ways to deal with genjutsu attacks, and being the professor, Sarutobi Hiruzen is naturally very proficient in dealing with genjutsu, so any simple genjutsu attack won't be effective against him. But if it's Koto Ematsukami? However, the expected genjutsu attack did not happen, but what Sandaime saw was just a gaze filled with hatred and spitefulness from the assailant's eyes. Seeing those eyes filled with malice towards him, Sandaime was a little dazed, and the mud binding technique that he was controlling to keep the attacker trapped lost its activity. The attacker immediately realized that the mud binding technique was weakened, and immediately broke free of the mud binding. He looked to the left, then towards the right. Seeing all the shuriken and kunai coming towards him, the attacker immediately leaped backward and broke through one of the other glass windows and disappeared into the night. Whoosh! 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 Sandaime did not need to order, two Umbu teams immediately pursued the attacker. With everything calmed down, Udatain Koharu used Iryo ninjutsu to treat Mitokado's shoulder wounds, and said to Sandaime, Hiruzen, we can't hesitate anymore, we must act immediately, otherwise, the consequences will be disastrous. Sandaime thought a little and immediately raised his hand. In an instant one of the Umbu still left in the Hokage building appeared in front of the Hokage and asked respectfully, Hokage-sama, your order? Sandaime picked up his tobacco pipe that lay on the Hokage table, and said, in the name of Hokage, I declare a state of emergency in the village, summon all the clan heads, including the Uchiha clan patriarch, as well as the elite jonin for an emergency meeting. Yes, Hokage-sama. Nodded the Umbu shinobi and disappeared. He was surprised that Hokage-sama even asked to summon Uchiha Patriarch, but he did not question Sandaime's words, as he believed that Hokage-sama must have said so for some reason, maybe to confront Uchiha Patriarch for what happened just now in the presence of all the other Patriarch and elite jonin. Regardless, his job is to follow Hokage-sama's order and he must do so. With that Umbu member gone off to complete the order, Sandaime looked at the captain of the Hokage guard who stood next to him, and order, you lead the rest of the team and follow team 11. Check Uchiha Shursui's state. If you find something abnormal with his state then immediately subdue him together with Danzo and Hatake Kakashi, and if there is nothing normal then notify Hatake Kakashi and Uchiha Shursui that I have summoned them. Make sure to not injure him at any cost if not necessary. But Hokage-sama, then your safety. An assassination attempt was made on Hokage while in the Hokage building, the most secure place in entire Konoha, under the eyes of all the Umbu, and yet they were unable to do anything. Even if the attacker failed in the end, the Umbu members were still horrified, and obviously had a lot of pressure because there is no guarantee that this will be the end of it. However, Sandaime thought differently, don't worry about me, Kyubi and Uchiha Shursui are more important. Seeing that Sandaime still insisted, the captain of the Hokage guards nodded and left the Hokage building. At this time, Udatain Koharu asked with a frown, Hiruzen, was the attacker just now not Uchiha Shursui? Based on the orders given by Hiruzen, it wasn't difficult to understand that Sandaime believed that the attacker was not Uchiha Shursui. Sandaime exhaled smoke and nodded. Elder Koharu was confused, why? All the information they have up to now points towards Uchiha Shursui, and yet Sandaime says that it wasn't Uchiha Shursui? Koharu can't help but be confused by this. Mitokado whose injury has been taken care of for the time being asked, Hiruzen, did you notice something? Sandaime was silent for a while, and then said, from his eyes. Both Elder Hamura and Elder Koharu looked at each other with confusion clearly apparent in their eyes, from his Sharingan. Hiruzen shook his head, not the Sharingan, but his eyes. I would like to believe that whether Shursui chooses the Uchiha clan over the village or he chooses the village, his eyes will never have that spiteful look filled with hatred. There may be some guilt but hatred. Never. And yet the eyes of the attacker had deep hatred towards me that it was clearly apparent from his eyes. It seemed as if he hates Konoha from every fiber of his being, so he cannot be Uchiha Shisui. Shisui is Kagami's grandson, and I know that he has the same love towards the village as Kagami. Even if the attacker's performance was impeccable throughout the attack, so much so that even Sandaime had no choice but to think that he may be Uchiha Shisui, but it was that hatred-filled look that gave away the truth, which made Sandaime realize a possible conspiracy theory. Uchiha clan grounds. An Uchiha Jonin hurriedly rushed towards the Patriarch's mansion and reported all the news to Uchiha Fugaku. We have received news that a while after the emergency signal flare was fired, Sandaime had declared that the village will enter a state of emergency, and he has summoned the patriarchs of all the clans as well as the elite Jonin. Uchiha Fugaku frowned upon hearing this sudden piece of news, and his drowsy state was immediately gone. He asked, has there been any confirmation about why the village has entered a state of emergency? Was it because of some sudden attack from Amatsukami? Or any other shinobi village suddenly declared war on Konoha? Sandaime declared the village to enter a state of emergency and summoned all the clan heads as well as the elite Jonin in the middle of the night. Such measures are only used when the matter of utmost seriousness, and probably a war has been declared on the village. There has been no confirmation as of yet, as nobody seems to know the exact reason. The Uchiha Jonin shook his head, and said, but there was no order convened to us, neither to the Uchiha clan nor to the Konoha military police force. Fugaku frowned and immediately noticed that something was wrong. Issue an immediate summoning order to all the special Jonin and above. If the village were to enter a state of emergency, then Hokage will without a doubt inform the Konoha military police force, as the public security of the village is under the jurisdiction of the Konoha military police force. It is completely impossible to not notify the Uchiha clan that has the greatest number of Jonin shinobi. But it seems that Sandaime has forgotten the Konoha military police force, which is too abnormal, and there is only one plausible explanation. Even if Fugaku doesn't want to believe in that possibility, he must at least take the necessary security measures. The Uchiha Jonin nodded and immediately went out to convene the summoning order. And Uchiha Fugaku immediately walked to his room. At this time, Uchiha Mikoto, the wife of Uchiha Fugaku, has already woken up, and seeing the tense face of her husband, she asked, "What's the situation?" Fugaku said, "Things are going." However, before Fugaku could finish his words, a voice from the other side of Fusuma came, "Ado-sama, what happened? Why was the emergency signal flare fired?" Fugaku turned towards the source of the voice. "Itachi, the village is in a state of emergency. Your mother and I are going out for a while to check the situation." And Uchiha Mikoto continued, "You will stay at home and take care of Sasuke in our absence." Itachi nodded. He wanted to ask more, but before he could speak, both Fugaku and Mikoto had already walked out. Looking at the dark sky and the bright full moon, along with the noisy courtyard, Itachi was suddenly reminded of the night of the Kyuubi's attack a few years ago. And he had an ominous feeling that tonight is going to be a very long night. On Team 11's side, dog, cat, eagle, and monkey all stopped suddenly. Because on a tree not far away, Uzumaki Naruto, whose hand and feet were tied, mouth gagged, was hung on a tree. He was currently struggling to break free, but to no avail. The captain of the team, Dog, did not rush to rescue the tied-up Uzumaki Naruto, but asked the eagle while looking around vigilantly, "Eagle, try to sense the traps here." Kanahagakur. Standing on top of the roof near the Uchiha clan, two figures quietly observed all the movements of the Uchiha clan, without giving away their positions. These two are not ordinary bystanders, and if Hyuga Kuroto was here, he would have recognized these two as Shino and Oto Yumi. Looking at the noisy Uchiha clan territory in the distance, Oto Yumi licked her lips in anticipation and said with a smile, "It seems that your plan worked. The Uchiha clan is in a restless state now." Shino chuckled softly and said, "Not mine, Orochimaru, but theirs, the Akatsuki's. Their plan worked. I am just here to take advantage of them." Like Orochimaru, Shino has also never regarded himself as a member of the criminal organization Akatsuki. There are only two reasons why he joined the Akatsuki. Firstly, because he didn't have any other choice when he was found by the two members of Akatsuki. The second reason was the resources he could use by staying in the Akatsuki, and Shino did use all the resources that Akatsuki can provide him for his research, to obtain the techniques that he needed and to facilitate his future actions. In Shino's mind, only the revival of Land of Sky is his supreme pursuit, and only with the power of Land of Sky will he be able to rule the entire shinobi world. And he is really grateful to Akatsuki. His plans have started to come to fruition much before than his initial preparation, and Akatsuki is a major reason for that. So, it's about time he kicks away the Akatsuki and focuses on reviving the Land of Sky. Oto Yumi, or better yet, Orochimaru glanced at his side with a cold expression. Although there was no change of emotion on his face, he was a bit unhappy by the way Shino referred to him. It goes to show that after devouring the demon Morio, Shino's strength has increased a lot, and with the increase of his strength so has his confidence and arrogance. So much so that even when talking to Orochimaru, Shino no longer refers to him respectfully. The change in the method of speaking implies that Shino is no longer afraid of Orochimaru, and he no longer puts himself in an inferior position. Feeling the traces of surging dark chakra being emitted from Shino, Orochimaru was quite depressed. Once upon a time, whether it was Shino or Hirako or many other shinobi for that matter, were all below him, could be abandoned at any time, not even worth his attention if they were not useful for him. But now, whether Shino or Hirako or even Hyuga Kuroto, have all turned into powerhouses against whom even Orochimaru has to be very careful. This makes him very depressed, as he is still at a standstill. He has not made much progress since he left Konoha. Shino seemed to have noticed Orochimaru's emotional fluctuation, and said with a smile, "Do not worry Orochimaru, you should be able to obtain what you are here for tonight." Orochimaru said in a slightly regretful tone, "Unfortunately, I have not been able to find her until now." Shino shook his head casually. Why worry? There is still Uchiha Itachi, a very genius shinobi. Orochimaru sighed and shook his head. He is too young. Although Itachi is undoubtedly a talented child, he is still too young, not even in his teenage. Therefore, Orochimaru is not sure whether it would be a good idea to use living corpse reincarnation on Itachi. Shino thought a little and said, "Uchiha Tsukihai is Uchiha Shinichi's subordinate spy, so I think it's better not to pursue her, because if you do so, then there are chances that the Akatsuki will come after you more strongly than ever." Humph, as if I care what Akatsuki wants, my reason for pursuing Uchiha Tsukihai is different. Orochimaru snorted. To be honest, Orochimaru is not the kind of narrow-minded individual who would bear hatred because of one or two defeats. To him, his interests matter most. But it is still hard for him to accept being humiliated and led by the nose by a mere 16-17-year-old kunoichi, even if she is an Uchiha. What irritated Orochimaru, even more, is that after he had passed Uchiha Tsukihai's information to Shimura Danzo, and asked him to collect more intelligence about Uchiha Tsukihai, but Danzo dared to tell him that there is no female Uchiha who matches this description, neither of the same age nor of a different. Shimura Danzo has no sincerity to maintain a cooperative relationship. Repeatedly annoyed, Orochimaru wanted to get Uchiha Tsukihai's body more and more. Orochimaru is sure that Uchiha Tsukihai's basic strength surpasses what Tsunade had at the same age, and this is a big thing to say considering just whose granddaughter Senju Tsunade is. Orochimaru feels that Uchiha Tsukihai is a bit different from the rest of the Uchiha. The same is the case with her Sharingan, which seems a bit different from the rest of the Uchiha. This is his serpentine intuition, making him feel that the Sharingan in Uchiha Tsukihai's eye sockets is even more attractive than Uchiha Shinichi's, who has a pair of Menjikyu Sharingan. Is it possible that Uchiha Tsukihai's visual prowess is superior compared to Uchiha Shinichi's, and if it is, then does that mean there is even a superior visual prowess than the Menjikyu Sharingan? Was his thought. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku led the assembled Uchiha shinobi and rushed towards the Hokage building. Watching Fugaku lead the most elites Uchiha, Shino said, "The hurdles are gone, it's time for you to act." Orochimaru did not speak anything and disappeared from his position. Followed by him, Shino also disappeared from the roof of the building they were hiding at. It didn't take long for Orochimaru and Shino to sneak inside the Uchiha clan. And since the elites of the Uchiha clan were taken away by the Patriarch Fugaku, the two intruders easily managed to make their way to the Patriarch's mansion. However, as soon as both of them broke inside the courtyard of the Uchiha Patriarch's house, several shuriken were shot at them. After dodging a few of the shuriken, Orochimaru then directly reached out his hand and caught the other shuriken by his hand. While Shino easily avoided all the shuriken. The shurikens were naturally shot by Itachi, who was still at his home. He looked at the two people, and his gaze lingered on Shino a bit longer, as if realizing something. He asked with a calm face, "You are Shino?" Itachi has only once met Shino, which was during the first mission that he took with Kuroto-san, and yet he recognizes Shino perfectly. Shino said with a smile, "Uchiha Itachi, I did not expect that you would remember me from that time." Then Itachi's gaze landed on the kunoichi next to Shino, and he was able to sense a cold aura from her. Even the shuriken she held made her bleed, but it seemed as if she did not care about the wound at all. Oto Yumi took out the shuriken without any care for the wound and said while licking the blood on her hand, "Uchiha Itachi, it seems that you have grown quite a lot from the last time I saw you. You were able to sense both of our arrivals so early." Itachi frowned. "Last time I saw you? Have I met her before?" Itachi did not have much time to think when suddenly the sound of running came from the back corridor. Itachi's eyes widened, he suddenly panicked. Sasuke, don't come here. With only him and Sasuke left in the house, it wasn't hard for anyone to figure out that the person running here was Uchiha Sasuke. Oto Yumi's eyes narrowed at Itachi's sudden panic, and she immediately rushed towards Itachi. At the same time, Shino also took the advantage of Itachi's distraction and rushed towards the direction of the sound of footsteps. Ding! Ding! Clang! Oto Yumi fought with the young Itachi in the courtyard of the house, and the kunai of the two repeatedly clashed with each other, producing a harsh metal clanking sound. At the back corridor, Sasuke's voice was heard abruptly, "Who are you?" and ended abruptly amidst the muffled sound of fist hitting flesh. Only a few seconds later, Shino returned with an Uchiha Sasuke held in his hand. His younger brother caught by the enemy, Itachi was more agitated, but he understood that he is not allowed to panic, because if he were to panic, then Sasuke would be in more danger, so calming down his restlessness, Itachi asked with a gloomily cold voice as his Sharingan was activated and the three Tomo were rapidly spinning, "What do you two want with us?" Oto Yumi looked at the pair of scarlet eyes and said while licking her lips, "I want you Uchiha Itachi." Itachi was startled, "Me? But why would a kunoichi who I have never even met want me?" was his thought, but calming his surprise, Itachi immediately said without any trace of hesitation, "Let Sasuke go, I will come with you." Shino chuckled, "It seems that your love for your brother is even more than we expected. Since that is the case, then we can't let your brother go." Oto Yumi nodded, and immediately took hold of Sasuke from Shino, and said with a smile while licking her lips that almost made her look like a nymphomaniac, "I am giving you two options Uchiha Itachi. Either you come with me without any resistance, or send Uchiha Tsukihai, your choice, choose fast." "I am giving you two options Uchiha Itachi. Either you come with me without any resistance, or send Uchiha Tsukihai, your choice, choose fast," said Oto Yumi. Oto Yumi wanted Itachi to choose the second option, in exchange for Uchiha Sasuke's life. Hearing the unknown name, Itachi frowned, "Uchiha Tsukihai." This is the first time he has heard this name, so Itachi was a bit confused as to who is this kunoichi referring to, but after a bit of thinking, Itachi also wondered if she is talking about Hosan. But this was only momentary speculation, and Itachi was not even sure. At this time, Uchiha Sasuke, who was unconscious, also regained his consciousness. The first person he looked at was Itachi, and realizing the peril he was in, Sasuke cried, "Ni-san, help me." Even if Itachi had put up a calm face, he was still anxious about Sasuke, and Sasuke's cry for help only made him more restless. He seemed to be in a desperate situation, and the Tomos in his Sharingan were spinning faster and faster. Oto Yumi smirked at Itachi's helplessness. She did not stop Sasuke's cries. For her, the more this Uchiha brat cries for help, the more panicked Uchiha Itachi will become, making him prone to accepting any and all conditions to ensure the safety of his dearest Otuto. And she can feel that this approach is working pretty well, as even with the mask of that calm face, there was deep restlessness hidden within. Shino folded both of his arms over his chest and calmly watched the situation unfold. He was like a spectator. He did not care about the end result, but he was indeed looking forward to the choice that Uchiha Itachi will make. It did not take Itachi very long to think, and after weighing out things a little he shook his head and said, "I am sorry, I do not know of any Uchiha Tsukihai. As long as you let go of Sasuke, I am willing to follow you without any resistance." Oto Yumi was already aware of the importance of Sasuke for Itachi, and taking out a kunai, she pressed it over Sasuke's neck, and said, "I have changed my mind, now I want both you and Uchiha Tsukihai." With his eyes fixed on the blade of the kunai that rested over Sasuke's throat, Itachi's chakra fluctuation started to become erratic and violent. Oto Yumi's heart shuddered after sensing those chakra fluctuations, but she still had a smile on her face. "Calm down Uchiha Itachi, or would you rather want your dearest Otuto to die here?" As she said that, Oto Yumi put some strengthened in her hand. As a result, the blade of her kunai which touched Sasuke's skin started to cut through it, resulting in traces of red blood flowing out of the cut. Saying that Sasuke was scared would be an understatement. He was literally horrified by what was happening to him. Tears rolled down his eyes. He had a pitiful look. But being the person that he is, Sasuke tried his best to suppress his wailings due to several reasons. First is that he understood the situation to some extent. If Itachi gave away information about this Uchiha Tsukihai that these two want, then that would be a betrayal to the clan and the village. But if Itachi did not give away that information, then there is a possibility that he will die tonight. If Itachi were to sacrifice himself for the sake of his Otuto, then Sasuke would not be able to bear that, but if Itachi does not sacrifice himself for the sake of his Otuto, then Itachi would not be able to bear that. And last of all, Sasuke understood that Uchiha must never cry, so if someone saw him crying then he would be looked down upon by them. But he is still a child, and the fear still acted upon him, causing slight drops of tears to roll down his cheek. Itachi tried his best to pass a reassuring smile, and said softly, "Do not be afraid, Sasuke, I will definitely save you." Sasuke could not nod because if he did then the blade of kunai would cut a deeper wound, but his eyes became firm after he heard Itachi's words, and he gritted his teeth to bear the worst because he had faith that Nisan would definitely save him. "My, what a touching brotherhood bond we have here," mocked Oto Yumi as she licked her lips, and continued, "But Uchiha Itachi, are you really sure you can save your Ototo? My patience is limited, and I want your answer now. I want information on Uchiha Tsukihai." Itachi stared at Oto Yumi coldly. "I do not know of any Uchiha Tsukihai. There is no one in the Uchiha clan with this name. You can verify this information through all your means, but it won't change anything. If someone does not exist then they do not exist." Oto Yumi's expression darkened. Shimura Danzo said to Orochimaru that the Uchiha clan does not have anyone with the name Uchiha Tsukihai, and now that Itachi has also said so, then it's possible that Tsukihai is a pseudonym or a fake name. Thinking so, Oto Yumi described the physical feature of Tsukihai, as well as some of her abilities, and then asked again, "Now answer me. She is really after Hosan?" Was Itachi's thought, but even if he understood this, Itachi still shook his head. No one in the clan matches this description. And what Itachi said is not a lie. There is really no one within Uchiha clan in Konoha who matches the description. This was the moment Oto Yumi was out of patience, and said coldly, "If you want your Ototo back, you will bring Uchiha Tsukihai to me." After dropping these words, Oto Yumi did not wait for Itachi's reply, and just disappeared from her position along with Sasuke. Itachi looked at Shino for a second and seeing that he has no plans to act, Itachi ignored him and jumped forward to pursue the kunoichi. When Itachi passed by him, Shino noticed the merging pattern in Itachi's eyes. At a glance it seemed to form the shape of 3 spiraling curves around the pupil, and an eerie aura was oozing off of Itachi's body along with palatable chakra fluctuations. It seems Orochimaru is going to be in big trouble. Such an idea took birth in Shino's mind. Shaking his head, Shino soon let go of this thought. For one, Orochimaru is a Sannin, and you know what that means, and secondly, Shino doesn't care in the slightest at what happens to Orochimaru. The savvy snake could die for all he cares. With that out of the way, Shino closed his eyes and tried to perceive the thing for which he came to Konoha. After a while, Shino opened his eyes and turned his head in the direction of the Hyuga clan. "Is she there?" muttered Shino. There are only 2 reasons why he sneaked into Konoha this time. The first is to repay Orochimaru's favor, and the second is to find the daughter of Miko and devour her. This is the most important part. After becoming the Jinchuriki of Morio, Shino has obtained a lot of knowledge, and he has also learned that Miko and Morio are 2 halves of the same being. Which made him understand that as long as he swallows the power of both, Morio and Miko, he would gain the powers of both Miko and Morio, as a result transcending into a greater being, perhaps even superior to Pain who has the eyes of Rakuto Sennin. But when he reached the land of Demon and broke into the palace of Miko, he found out that Miko had already passed on her powers to her daughter, and sent her away, and also placed some kind of Miko-specific Fuinjutsu on her daughter which hindered Shino's perception of Cheyenne. Well, after that Miko was killed by them, and with her death, the sealing technique she placed on her daughter also started to disappear. As a result, Shino was able to perceive the approximate location of Cheyenne. Looking in the direction in which he perceived Cheyenne's position, Shino did not delay any longer and hurried over. He did not tell about his objective to anyone in the Akatsuki, so he wants to swallow Miko's daughter as early as he can without alerting anyone. Shiver. Shiver. For some reason, Kuroto suddenly started to feel this sudden cold feeling. Currently, he is in a spirit body form, and logically speaking it should not be possible for him to feel any kind of coldness or warmth as it simply doesn't make any sense. At least, not with the absence of thermoreceptors that only a physical body can have. Flying such a long distance in the soul state is a first-time experience for Kuroto. As his first impression, Kuroto felt that traveling in a soul state is indeed somewhat advantageous as the speed is unreasonably fast. Even if Kuroto is used to the extremely fast speed of Tenseigan chakra mode, he still felt that the soul state travel might as well be the second fastest mode of travel in the shinobi world. Right after space-time techniques. And since Kuroto knows that he has no way of mastering space-time techniques for now, so he feels that such a mode of travel is also a very viable option, considering its advantages. But soon, Kuroto started to feel discomfort. And this discomfort appeared in the form of the sudden coldness he started to feel. Logically speaking, Kuroto should not feel warmth or coldness in the spirit body form, and yet he does. Why is that? He tried to think of the possible reasons, and the first possible reason Kuroto can think of was fast consumption of chakra. When traveling in soul form, the rate of chakra consumption is indeed very high. Moreover, in this state, Kuroto has no access to Ryumyaku chakra, nor can he condense more of his chakra, so whatever chakra he already has is rigorously being consumed. And the second likeliest reason is the strength of spirit. For a myriad of time, Kuroto has pondered as to why was his genetics weaker compared to the rest of the Hyuga. Before awakening Tenseigan, Kuroto still doesn't have any possible explanation, but there is one possibility, and that is the strength of his soul. For condensing chakra, both physical body and spirit body are essential, and the strength or weakness of either affects the other. From the time he has started to use Tenseigan's soul descend, Kuroto has figured out that his soul is way weaker than the indigenous people of this world, and that had somehow affected his physical body too. And even after he has awakened the Tenseigan, which has increased his soul body's strength significantly, it is still nowhere near ready to perform such long-time separation from any physical body. And that's why the chakra consumption is very high for Kuroto, at least very high compared to Miko-sama, who was able to remain in the soul state even after losing her physical body for nearly a month if not longer. Well, Miko's specific powers and Fuinjutsu might also be a cause behind this, but who knows? Although he doesn't think that his current soul body is weaker than Miko-sama, he does know that compared to Otsutsuki Indra and Otsutsuki Azura, Kuroto is indeed incomparable. After all, their souls have still been staying in the shinobi world to this day. As for Rikudo Sennin, there is nothing to even speak about. Someone who can give his chakra to Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke such that both of their strength reached such a high level is simply unreasonable, and Kuroto couldn't even begin to fathom just how strong would his soul be. It can only be described as a major qualitative gap of several levels. Damn, I have to hurry, or else. Gradually, Kuroto felt that his consciousness has begun blurring. This is obviously not a good sign. It undoubtedly means that the chakra volume was at a limit, and he has to hurry. Fortunately enough, he is already very close to the village, otherwise, Kuroto would be in serious trouble. Increasing his speed, Kuroto rushed full throttle towards the direction of the village and soon arrived. At this moment, the village seems to have fallen into a chaotic state. Many ninjas were gathered near the Hokage building, and many others were busy evacuating the villagers into the emergency shelter. Seeing such a state, Kuroto can't help but wonder, has the situation gone so worse? Did Akatsuki launch a full-scale attack on the village? No. That's not possible, because if it really happened then Konoha would have been destroyed already, so that's unlikely. But then what is the reason? Kuroto was puzzled, more so because even with the chaotic state of the village, no fighting seems to be happening around, so what is happening that has prompted Sandim-sama to issue emergency evacuation? While Kuroto was wondering, he also noticed another spirit body that flashed past the Hyuga clan territory and disappeared. Kuroto frowned. How can there be another spirit body here? Is it possible that someone in the clan is inquiring about the situation in the village in the spirit form? Because Kuroto can only remember one Konoha shinobi who used to use a soul transfer technique, and that Kato Dan, the only user, is long dead. Does that mean that someone else has also mastered such a technique? When thinking so, Kuroto also thought of the possibility that this person may be the traitor that betrayed the village to Kyumo by passing secret intel. And this really makes sense, because if this traitor has mastered such a technique, then he can easily pass on the information about the layout of the Hyuga clan to others, guide them to the Hyuga clan, and even lead the culprit to sneak into the sleeping quarters of Hyuga Hinata. I don't think that he noticed me, and I think that I need to find a way to figure out who exactly that person is and then get rid of him as soon as I can. Muttered Kuroto. Currently, Kuroto doesn't have time to pursue that person, as Kuroto was having difficulty maintaining concentration, but in the near future I will try to investigate. After nodding to himself, Kuroto did not stay here anymore and rushed in the direction of his secret laboratory. Entering his secret laboratory after bypassing all the barriers, Kuroto came to the room where 2 nutrition tanks were stored. Looking at the 2 nutrition tanks in front of him, Kuroto groaned for a little. These 2 nutrition tanks contained his Suijin clone and Homusubi clone, and Kuroto was considering which option should he choose. After a while of weighing the situation a little, Kuroto decided and transferred his soul into Homusubi clone. Since you won't have access to Ryumyaku chakra right now, so the battle potential of the Suijin clone will be somewhat limited, and it would hard to deal with the likes of Shino in the Jinchuriki state and Hirako. Moreover, ice release is too conspicuous to act in a covert. So Homusubi clone is a better option, although the base strength is still not as good as Suijin clone, the presence of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan makes up for that. And there is also a possibility that Shino can perform high-level genjutsu with the powers of Morio, so the visual prowess of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan coupled with Dekokuden would make up for all the shortcomings and even give some advantages. When Kuroto transferred his soul into Homusubi clone, the Sandame Kazekage puppet helped in draining the solution inside the nutrition tank, and he can finally come out of the nutrition tank. After coming out of the nutrition tank, Kuroto did not even bother about the wet body, and the first thing he did was take a deep breath to relieve the pain and coldness he was feeling earlier. The feeling of your spirit body being on the verge of collapse really makes one uncomfortable. But there is also no other alternative. Strengthening of the spirit body can only be done through adaptation, and that takes time and effort. Regardless, Kuroto doesn't have time to ponder over such issues as he must hurry to ensure Yui and Cheyenne safety. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaioshin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my Patreon. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Nicholas Berenger, Ben Phillips, Yamatancho, Taco TSK, Yuki, Jose Torres. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here until next time.